Hello, good afternoon. So here we are at a digital innovation conference where most of the conversations are about blockchain, AI, gaming, and now we're having a panel on space. Yeah, like outer space, right? What's that all about? So one of the things that blockchain is helping us innovate on a whole bunch of different frontiers here on Earth. It can also help us innovate humanity's future in space. And if we want to survive for the long term, we must become a multiplanetary species. We must first protect our home, and then we have to leave it. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how blockchain can help us innovate on the final frontier of space. So I'm really pleased to introduce our panelists today. First, we have Geoffery Farrugia, CEO of Hands-On Systems, a global telematics company, who's also involved with the R&D in regards to building a space registry using blockchain. There you are. Our next panelist is Colin Doughan, CEO of Spacebridge Logistics. Colin spent his career building large satellite systems, now bringing blockchain to the space industry. Excellent, thank you, Colin. And finally, Irina Litchfeild, founder of Blockchain Cubed, founding advisor of Abe Global Securities Exchange, and a senior advisor at Space Fund, which is a tokenized venture capital firm that's revolutionizing and democratizing investments in space. Excellent. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
I think we're going to have a little fun. So, today we'll talk a little bit about logistics, governance, finance, all of these things that blockchain is helping us innovate here terrestrially, but can also help innovate on the final frontier, right? So I'd like to kind of start with each of you giving us a short kind of 3-sentence introduction to your project, what you're doing, and how you're innovating blockchain and space together. So let's start with you, Geoffery.
Okay, so good afternoon to all. Thanks for the introduction. So I'm CEO of Hands-On Systems. We're known very much in the local market for telematics, IoT, and stuff. However, we tend to get roped in a lot of research projects, both locally and also on an international level. Basically, one of our projects which relates directly to space and blockchain was revolving around having some sort of space registry, whereby every space vehicle or space asset is saved and registered in some sort of ledger, which we can use blockchain for that. And the main objective was to find a way how to make space research and space vehicles cheaper, more accessible, in a way that if we can share data and share resources and share certain components between space vehicles, you could possibly save a space vehicle from actually being decommissioned and brought down to Earth. So basically that's the research which we were working on. Maybe we can have a bigger discussion later on. Yep.
Great. Colin?
Hi, my name is Colin Doughan, CEO of Spacebridge Logistics. And at Spacebridge, we're looking at the blockchain to potentially provide a similar registry kind of function, but for more the financial benefits of it. If you can take a satellite, we're kind of a boom time for satellites launching into space. Over the next decade, we should have 5,000 to 10,000 new satellites launching. And with that much increase in demand, if we can link each one of them to the blockchain prior to launch, you can establish firm ownership rights for those assets, freeing them up to be used for all ways that assets are used here on Earth. A variety of financial, you could do collateral-backed loans, you could do a variety of financial services to these owners. Eventually, you could even allow in-space purchases, being able to actually sell these assets to other purchasers. So a little bit of what we're focused on.
Yes, and I'm here on behalf of Space Fund. And the biggest mission that we have at Space Fund is to really democratize the investment opportunities in the space industry. The whole market and the whole space market is, capital market is basically non-existent. only 10 years ago, we were in a position to where in order to do business with, in the space industry, you had to work with governments directly. And now, luckily, to great work of advisors and the revolutionaries who were able to lead the governments to open the enterprise, we now need to create the new capital market for this industry. And so application of security tokens is what we have in Space Fund.
Excellent, excellent. So terrestrially, to me at least, one of the most exciting applications of blockchain is in the logistics markets, right? Helping track products from initial production all the way through to the end of the value chain, right? Blockchain has a lot of logistics applications. So your company is called Spacebridge Logistics, Colin. So talk to me a little bit about the logistics challenges of space, how that's different than logistics here on Earth, and how blockchain can help really kind of move that forward.
Sure. So many aspects, just touch on a few of them. The idea of being able to understand where all the assets first are, and then the ability to start saying, okay, well, right now those assets are complete little packages. These satellites are formed on the Earth, treated very gently, and all is one package deal. But where we see kind of the industry growing is the flexibility to be able to now start to manufacture things in space, or to have components that need repairing or upgrading in space. And so with the ability to track all of that information, you start to be able to say, satellite number 1 has a problem. We have a new upgrade or repair component that we can bring over and install into that satellite and then restore its functionality. A quick story. So in February of this year, Digital Globe takes high-end pictures of the Earth. They had a $700 to $900 million asset. That asset failed on orbit for lack of a $1 million to $10 million part. Now that sounds like a lot, but when you're talking almost $1 billion, they happily would have paid that price to reinstate or restore that capability in orbit. We're hoping to be able to help facilitate that transfer to keep these high-end, expensive, valuable assets running.
And why is blockchain necessary to do that?
Sure. The decentralized value of being able to say this isn't just a China thing, a US thing, a Europe thing, this is a global thing, and being able to let any new actor from a global stage be able to come and join that supply chain, if you will, then those potential vendors that could have been the solution for this problem on the Digital Globe satellite could come from anywhere. Blockchain can really facilitate that marketplace to allow for a global stage or a global marketplace.
Excellent. And Geoffery, you've done a little bit of research, or quite a bit of research into this area as well. So tell me, from your perspective, why blockchain is so important for space.
Oh, in fact, through our research, it came out that it's quite a fragmented industry. So we have to understand also space, where it came from and where it is. So a couple of years ago, we had this space race, where everyone was trying to be there the first, and always being the best at what they managed to achieve at space. So many countries were, and I believe they still are, very secretive about what they're doing, what they're going to launch, what's the technology about. We've discovered that even like manufacturers do not really have common protocols between them. They have not yet set a number of common grounds, like, for example, down on Earth. Automotive manufacturers have managed to standardize these last 15 years protocols whereby every vehicle needs to abide with. When it comes to space, we've realized that it's still very secretive, very fragmented, and also, there's no common ground or no common standards. Or if there is, there's no one actually enforcing them, so space. In fact, earlier on, I was discussing with my colleague here, who is where is the jurisdiction, who is the law enforcer in space, like who decides what to do, and who decides what not to do, what can you do. So there are treaties which were signed a couple of years ago by some countries, but still there's a lot of things that needs to be done. So possibly blockchain could enable this common standard protocol or common standard platform, whereby if you are going to operate in space or you're going to travel in space, because we're now also looking at space tourism, you know, how can we somehow register, and how can we know what other space vehicles are orbiting around the Earth and what resources they can share. So one of the things that we've learned as well is that in a lot of space exploration and space vehicles, communication satellites, there's a lot of duplicate equipment, you know, so every satellite, every space station has the same equipment that, you know, another satellite which is orbiting is basically have the same equipment. So possibly blockchain could facilitate in bringing awareness on sort of enabling this sharing of resources as well.
Excellent. So, Irina, talk to me a little bit about financing, right? Anytime you want to make anything happen in the business world, you've got to find your financing first. And financing in the space industry tends to be a little bit difficult. Space is hard to finance because typically you're talking about very long timelines. Timelines that are outside of a typical venture capital time horizon, for example. So talk to us a little bit about the kind of financial innovations around blockchain and how that can help us fund humanity's expansion into the stars.
Yes, absolutely. So I think when we talk about solutions, first we really need to understand the problems. And one of the there are two big problems that we have in the space industry right now. Number one is that there's not really a great way to have opportunity to invest in space projects. For the most part, the space projects are actually very privately shopped around through investment banks. And so as an accredited investor, let's say in the United States, who should be able to see the deals, they never get the opportunity to be able to see them. So that's one of the problems that we have. Another problem is that because the free enterprise space industry is such a new industry, we do not really have a liquidity. We do not have a markets like I mentioned earlier. And so even if we have a way to get money in to the space industry, we need to figure out how to get money out of the space industry. And when we talk about liquidity, the projects that are in the space can take 30, 40 years, right? So we need to be able to figure out how we can actually get money in, provide and democratize global opportunity for people to be able to get into this exciting space, and of course the ability to be able to get out of it and do it over and over again. And so I believe that that is exactly where blockchain technology and security tokens will be the answer to these questions. It is not quite yet, but I do know that it is a first step from going in a traditional financing industry in capital markets and creating those opportunities.
Excellent. And we just have about 2 minutes left, but I wanted to ask you guys to touch on something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, Geoffery, is that there is no space police, right? There's nobody really governing the space industry in that way. There's no single central body that's governing that. So Colin and Jeff, if you could just spend maybe 30 seconds talking about how blockchain can help with the governance of space, and eventually when we have human settlements in space, having a kind of governance platform that's started with blockchain from the beginning, what the possibilities are there.
Sure. So I think probably one of the ones that excites me in the near term, a lot of the long-term stuff is also exciting, but near term, there's a law recently passed in the United States, in one of its states, that allows for crypto tokens to be transferred without a money license. And that's in the state of Utah. It was just passed in July, so just a few months ago. And as long as the transaction fully occurs within its boundaries, you have the ability to not need a license. I'm excited for that jurisdictional agility to be applied in other places. We can look at places in Europe, we can look in places in Asia, and we can pick that location based on the laws that govern that location. The laws that govern space, yes, there are treaties that govern it currently. I think there's some question marks as to whether the Outer Space Treaty will survive over the next decades as the moon becomes an interest again and nation states begin to compete. We may see some people pull out of that. And we begin to see space as a potential jurisdiction for transactions to occur that could be very intriguing. We've heard some politicians talk about zero G, zero tax. That could be a really interesting idea to be able to explore.
Well, as Colin said, I think blockchain, one of the main objectives of blockchain was to actually provide for any application, including space, provide a technology which is basically a trustworthy technology that cannot be changed, and therefore it's immutable, and any information stored on blockchain is somehow very accurate and almost untouched. So definitely, as Colin was saying, I believe that if we have to venture even further in space, and I think space, we're just touched, literally the beginning of what the potential in space is all about, and what can we gain and what can we develop. Definitely we need to find a way of regulating way forward and regulating this development and exploration. So definitely blockchain, in my opinion, blockchain could be definitely a way of regulating all this activity, all this development.
Excellent. And I'd like to invite the members of the audience today, if you have a blockchain project that can help us solve a problem in space, come talk to me. If you want to learn about how to invest in space, come talk to me. We'll be around after the panel. Thank you very much.